working with Jill. Oh my God. I don't know about you, but I find it really difficult to work with Jill. Well, probably you don't find it as difficult as I do because you don't work with Jill. But what I mean is, I'm sure that you have a Jim or a Jill somewhere in your orbit that you find really difficult to work with. So how do we fix impossible people? That's what I'd like to look at this week. Well, maybe you think we wave a magic wand and poof, they're cured. Yeah, you wish. First point is we can't fix other people. It's impossible. We don't have direct access to that control center that governs their behavior. It doesn't exist. So we just need to live with it, you mean? No, I didn't say that. Let's just back up a moment. Two important principles to bear in mind when we start thinking about these kinds of problems. First of all, human beings are complex systems. So first of all, it's hopeless to think that we can get to some sort of situation where we control them and then they will do what we tell them to do. Telling doesn't work at all, by the way. And secondly, we all do what we do because it makes sense to us. It's meaningful for us to do what we do. May not make sense to other people, but for us it does. And that's what governs our behavior. So it's interesting to think a little bit more about, so how do we actually then make sense of the world? What is our meaning-making system, if you like? And we make sense of the world from the feedback that we receive from our environment, if you like. I mean, that's how we've developed. That's how we've become who we are. We do something and something happens out there and we adjust to that and we learn from that, hopefully, and becomes our new preferred behavior. It's how most of us function most of the time. And so what not everybody realizes is that the fastest way, the easiest way to change somebody's behavior is to change their context. If you change their context, they very often change their behavior. You may have small children and you may wonder, why is it that when they're at the neighbors, they always take their plates out from the table and clean them and put them in the dishwasher beautifully, and they never do it at home? Well, context, different behavior. That's how it works. But a more serious example, maybe. I've seen this play out so many times. So I work a lot with conference hotels in Denmark, which is a sort of in a sense, it's a small market and it's a closed circuit. It's one big family, you could say. So I often see people move from one position to the next position within the sort of same kinds of hotels. And very often I have this experience that I'll be at one hotel and I'll say, well, where's your F&B manager? And then the GM will say, well, we had to let him go. It was completely impossible. You know, he was the worst. Jim was the worst F&B manager we've had. I mean, he was really hopeless, lazy and incompetent. Okay. Few months later, I'll be in a completely different hotel and the GM will pull me aside and he'll say, you know what, Mike, I have to tell you something. We have a new F&B manager. He's called Jim. Absolutely brilliant. I tell you, he is the most competent F&B manager we've ever had. And I just have to smile and say to myself, yeah, same guy, different context. I see it again and again. So when you would like someone to behave differently, you need to think about how you can create a situation that's going to give them different feedback, send them different signals, if you like. And so you have two options, really. If it's somebody you're in charge of, you can maybe move them to a different team, a different work schedule, give them different tasks, whatever. But anything that you can do to change that environment that they're in, and then you see what happens, how they respond to that, if that somehow helps them or makes them see the world in a different way. Trickier, of course, if we are talking about Jill, who works in the other department and who seems to be quite difficult to work with for you. Probably not the same difficulty for somebody else, but for you it's difficult. So how can you adjust how you respond to Jill? Because there's something in the way that you respond to Jill that makes her do what she does. I know this is frustrating because it puts it back on us, but that's actually reality. So you need to think about, what could you experiment with? How could you behave differently when you are with Jill in order to see if you could get a different reaction or a different response from her? It's as simple as that. I've seen this play out again and again. So many people that I coach, we have this conversation along these lines. And this is the advice that I give them. And they come back to me again and again and say, you won't believe this, Mike. It actually worked. Yes, I believe it. I know it works. It works every time. Try it out for yourself. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.